My name is Nick Samios. I'm the fund manager and director here at Hermes Capital, and it is my pleasure to be your host for Lunch Money. 2020, what a year it's been. One thing 2020 has brought us in this whole COVID crisis, it's alerted us to two strategic challenges that Australia faces. One is a depleted manufacturing sector. If you cast your mind back to March and we were all of a sudden the shelves were empty of hand sanitizer and PPE, and we thought to ourselves, what the devil have we done to our manufacturing sector? And so that's become a challenge that's on the minds of everyone, really. You know, how do we bring back manufacturing? And another challenge that's sort of been alerted through the year is that our two biggest trading partners are all of a sudden at each other's throats, and so this has created a regional defence challenge for Australia. All of a sudden, we're concerned about what the Prime Minister describes as a region that's becoming more chaotic and more dangerous. So today, we're asking the question, what does it take to be a successful Australian manufacturing business in the year 2020? And we have two wonderful guests for you to talk through and try and see if we can get to the heart of how to do that. Our first guest is Todd Alder. G'day, Todd. How are you going?
Nick, very well. Thanks for inviting me.
You're very welcome. So, Todd, you're the CEO and Managing Director of Orbital Corporation. I think you've been there since about 2016 when you went across as the CFO. We should say that Orbital Corporation is a business that designs and manufactures, you call them propulsion systems for tactical drones. The rest of us would say engines, I suppose. But that's what Orbital does. And you announced your results today, which were fantastic. So congratulations on that. What is it that keeps you busy these past couple of weeks as the CEO of Orbital?
Nick, as you know, through following Orbital, we have a long-term supply agreement with Boeing in situ to develop and ship engines across all their tactical drones, their military tactical drones. So what's keeping us busy is we have two of those engine models in production now, but we're working on our third new engine model to bring into production. Also, we made some announcements earlier this year with two additional customers, a large Singapore defence organisation and also with Northrop Grumman, a $1 billion US Tier 1 military company. So what's keeping us busy is two engines in production, a third one in development, and two new customer opportunities.
And all of that, the development is done in Australia, that's done from your offices in Perth in terms of design. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. The significant portion of our research and development team, our engineers, the new product development, that's done in Perth.
And has COVID affected you at all?
Obviously, there are impacts. I'm definitely not on a plane at all, and so used to get a plane more. We've definitely had to strengthen our supply chain team, and also look at more inventive logistic channels as well to make sure we can get our product from here in Australia across to the US.
Were you travelling frequently to the US?
Yes.
Before?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I myself was travelling frequently to Perth, so I wasn't an international traveller. But it is more challenging. I don't know about you, but I'm old school, and I do like to sit across a table from someone, and it is challenging trying to deal with that. Is that something that you found as well?
We're managing through, as everyone's managing, through video conferencing. So there is a lot more, sort of early morning and late night calls with the US.
Yeah.
But as our customers are having to manage exactly the same. So we find everyone's in the same boat. So far, not any significant issues for us.
But you started at Orbital as CFO. Was that deliberate? You're always going to become CEO? Because I know that it was a smooth transition. From what I've read.
Yeah, that was the plan, yes. And the reason for joining Orbital was the wonderful opportunity that I thought Orbital had. I am one that likes to keep a fairly steely focus on the opportunity. So one of the first jobs that we undertook here was really the concentration on what we thought was our competitive advantage in this business, and that is building the very best engines for the military drone market. And so we sold off or shut down any other interests and made sure that everyone in this organisation was focused on one thing, and that was building the very best engines for this exciting market.
Yeah, well, that's fantastic. We're going to park you back in the waiting room there while we introduce our next guest, Jason Skinner. G'day, Jason. How are you going?
Good, thanks, Nick. Thanks for having me today.
You're very, very welcome. Jason is a corporate advisor and investor, and he's a director of JP Equity over in Perth. And you have been very busy during this COVID period.
Yeah, we've had a busy year for JP. We've successfully listed 2 companies on the stock exchange, as well as a handful of listed placements we've raised money for.
They've both been pretty successful.
Yeah, both. So in Telecare, we actually raised the money in the middle of March, which was pretty tough time to raise money. But in Telecare is in aged care, and it has an artificial intelligence component, which definitely helped. COVID's actually been quite good for in Telecare. So that came on in May, and within 2 days, it was 3 times the issue price. And it's still sitting close to 2 times the issue price of the IPO. We did dynamic drill and blast DDB. Probably about a month now, 2 months ago. Pretty much straight after Telecare, that was also successful. It came on at 150% plus. And it's still trading above the same kind of levels as Telecare, about 40 cents.
I have to say, it's quite amazing. I mean, in Telecare, if you sort of wanted to design a product for COVID, something, we've got concerns about aged care, and the timing was fantastic. And then, of course, mining services is booming over in WA, and so that your Orbital. Your drilling business there, the timing's fantastic for that as well.
Yeah, look, it's timing as well. It's worked well, as we've had a bit of a rally last few months. So the stock market's been pretty crazy. There's been a lot of money flying in, and it's aided well with the IPOs as well as the placements have done.
I'm told we had Brian Hughes on last week, who's chairman of Pitcher Partners, and he was saying that I can't remember if he was saying WA or just Australia generally has had the second highest number of IPOs during COVID. Why do you think that is?
Look, being WA, we very mining focused, and with the gold price where it is and other commodities, prices are pretty high at the moment. It definitely gets WA moving. There's, I guess, the borders being shut has been, even though it's not very convenient, having mining booming along. It's some of the businesses here are doing better than they've ever done. Because the money can't leave the state. Essentially, everyone's traveling, everyone's buying holiday homes or buying caravans, boats, whatever they can do to get out of Perth. So it's actually been pretty good for WA.
Yeah, I'm trying to get myself certified to drive one of those big yellow Tonka trucks so that I can be like an essential worker just to get in, because you're keeping us all out. That's for sure, which is good for you. But I would love to get over there. All right, listen, we will bring back Todd, and we might just show a clip of some of these drones in action. That's I tell you what, it looks like a lot of fun. I have to say that much, Todd. That's for sure. Um, how much of the it is just the engine that you guys are putting into those drones, or are you designing the drones as well?
No, we don't design the drones, but we
Yeah,
do a little more than the engine. So
yeah,
we package the engine into the back half of the drones. That includes the fuselage, the fuel tank, power supply. So really is 4 bolts and 1 connector is
yeah,
the back half of the drone that connects to the front half,
yeah.
which is the wings, and then all the electronic payloads they use for surveillance.
And I imagine that you can't design the drone without there'd be constant back and to and froing surely between whoever's designing the fuselage and etc. The frame, the airframe. Is that what you call them for drones?
Absolutely. It's one of our key strategies is to get very, very close with our customers. Our CTO is actually based in the US and participates on that future product development with those key customers.
Okay, well, let's just take a step back. I mean, when I was a small child, and it must have been in the early 70s, I had a book on cars, and the very last page on the book had the Orbital engine, and so I've always had the Orbital engine in my mind. Now, of course, the business has transformed over the years. I mean, you describe the business today. Some people would describe the business model today as being a manufacturer of drone propulsion systems. I mean, historically, the business has been an inventor. You know, you've created technologies and sold those technologies off for others to commercialize. How do you define the business today?
I think you noted that I sort of started here in late 2016, so and then was appointed as the MD in 2017. I think one of the key focus areas for us was transitioning or augmenting the clever engineering capability this business had, but augment that with some manufacturing expertise because, as I said before, we wanted to capture more of the value rather than just engineering jobs. We wanted to capture the value of some very special products that we can make, and so thereby needed to transition into a manufacturer. So
Right.
we're now no longer just a clever engineering house, but we do that full product life cycle where we design, develop, and now manufacture and ship our products to some of the biggest, US defense companies.
So you're sort of capturing more downstream, I suppose. You're moving along the process from capturing value in manufacturing as well as just the design.
Yeah, and that's correct. And we'd say we'd almost reach beyond the advanced manufacturing. So we build a complete subsystem. So it's putting together a number of different components, and there we have what we build. So there's the back half of that drone, and
Right.
why it's so special is it lasts 10 times as long as our closest competitor and starts straight away, and it's one of the most reliable engines now that these tactical drones are commercially and strategically significantly more valuable. They're no longer tolerable for an unreliable engine. So that's the sort of the problem that we solve with our technology and our skill set.
Yeah, I guess because of their military application, these things have to work first time every time, don't they?
Oh, that's correct. Some of these drones are worth somewhere between $2 to $4 million each. So no longer is it tolerated to lose them.
Yeah, Jason, from your point of view, I mean, obviously you're in the capital markets and you're a corporate advisor. I mean, are there many other businesses that you see that are sort of in this sort of space of designing and in terms of innovation?
There's not many manufacturing businesses in WA that isn't already worth a few hundred million market cap or even up to $1 billion, like Austral. What was appealing for Orbital is that for us looking into Orbital was that every so often you come across a gem that's hidden away in WA, being on the other side of the world, really, in terms of financial markets. Every so often you come across a company that's kind of under the radar, and the fact that Orbital has their own, that has all the manufacturing facilities from I guess the old Orbital, from Ralph Starrich's days, was very appealing. We don't normally get involved in companies with manufacturing, because of the upfront cost and the capex involved in building the facilities. But I guess Orbital was unique that they've already had a massive head start because they've already have those facilities.
And Todd, you've got facilities in WA. You've also got facilities in Drone Valley in the US.
Yeah, we do. In 2018, we opened up the US facility. It's in Hood River, Oregon, so just sort of about an hour and a half east of Portland. And we manufacture one engine here in Australia. We manufacture one engine from the US facility. And as I said before, the home of our CTO, so to be close to Boeing in situ, is over in that US facility. And we do most of the design and development work, however, back here in Perth.
So I'm interested that you've got a couple of areas. Obviously, there's the design of the engine itself, but also you've got the manufacturing process as well. I guess because that scholars say, and I will flash up on the replay of here, I'll cite my source, that for a business to excel, it needs to excel in one of three value disciplines. One of those is customer intimacy, so being close to the customer. One is operational excellence, and the example there is McDonald's and making a cheaper hamburger. I guess your value discipline is obviously product leadership in terms of innovation. I guess I've got two questions. One is, how do you, given that it is all about product leadership, how do you stay ahead of the curve? How do you make sure that your competitors aren't leapfrogging you? Is my first question, and I guess my follow-up question to that is, everybody talks about the high costs of manufacturing in Australia. There must be some price trade-off.
Yeah. So the first thing is, how do we stay ahead of our competition? Well, fortunately, we have some IP technology protected by a number of patents. But look, we dedicate funding to ongoing R&D, and that's the first step. But you need to also dedicate two other areas, and one is making sure that you're recruiting and developing the very best people in your industry. It's all well and good to dedicate some money, but you need the very best people. So we are fairly competitive or aggressive with attracting those best candidates. And the third one is, as day-to-day management goes, we have to be disciplined to carve out time to continue to work on that product development. So we've got three things. We have the capital, we attract the best people, and we have the discipline to make sure that those people are getting the time to work on sort of innovative products. So that's how we try to keep ahead of the curve. And the second question was, what was the second question, Nick?
The second question was, obviously, if you've got the best product in the market, you don't need to be the cheapest. But by the same token, you have to keep some rein on costs. And everybody, when people talk about manufacturing and why Australia is bereft of manufacturing now, it's all because of our high manufacturing costs. So how do you sort of manage that balance?
Yeah, I mean, everyone needs to be focused on cost, but one of the attractions we had to this industry, and particularly with what we have, is, as I was describing before, a full subsystem. So we have something that's quite special, quite unique, and is significantly better than our closest competition. So therefore, there is a bit of a premium for that product that we're able to price it at. However, we're working with large customers like Boeing in situ. We're working with Northrop Grumman. So we need to be cost conscious. We're prudent with how we price our product, but as I said before, it is a premium product, so there is a certain value that we can ascribe to that.
Jason, I wonder if you can tell me, as a corporate advisor, obviously, you're regularly involved in capital raising and IPOs for all sorts of businesses. I mean, we saw a couple of the ones that you've been involved in more recently. What do the capital markets want to hear when you're pitching a manufacturing business?
I guess it's one thing to manufacture, but the next thing is having someone to sell to. The benefit of what was appealing about Orbital was that they've already got a long-term agreement with In Situ, who's a subsidiary to Boeing, which is worth $350 million. So that there's one thing about building all the facilities, but then having someone to sell to and already having someone there that's going to buy it, this is going to buy your product is a massive tick.
So some sort of locked-in sales going forward, I guess, is what you're saying.
Yeah, like it's the good old. You don't want to be building a solution for a problem that doesn't exist.
I guess when you're pitching a mining company, for example, you've got your JORC and your proved and probable reserves and all that sort of stuff, and everybody knows, assuming you can get it out of the ground at the right price, there's a market, et cetera, et cetera. But so you're saying it's all about forward sales. Todd, when COVID-19 hit, and we were looking at those shortages, you'd go to everyone was panicking. There wasn't any hand sanitizer, there weren't face masks. We've sent it all off to China, and then all of a sudden, as I said, everybody's gone, my God, what have we done over the last 20 or 30 years? We've denuded this country of a capability for manufacturing. How would you go about rekindling manufacturing in this country?
Well, what I look at is first and foremost a cohesive strategy, something that was focused on competitive advantage in this country and or of strategic importance. So I think we're pleased that defence is getting that focus, that defence has laid out its plans over the next number of years. Has laid out that I think it's 270 odd billion that we'll be investing in defence and 2 billion in unmanned systems, of which we are happy to support.
Right.
I note that we have 40% currently of our supply chain in Australia.
Right.
And as we grow, we look to develop our supply chain and bring that supply chain up to volume capability, but also quality capability that come and supply the aerospace and defence sector. So all I'd say is cohesive strategy, competitive advantage, strategic and or strategically important. We're happy that one of those industries is the defence sector, and we'll do our part to assist the program.
That's very interesting. You said 40% of your supply chain is Australian?
Yes.
And to what extent? So some of that obviously is a cost factor, but there must also be a strategic factor as well.
Absolutely, and that's where we'll look at definitely in COVID-19, as everyone is looking at their supply chains and where we can look to bring stuff onshore. Or and when I say 40%, we have roughly 40% here. We have 40% in the US and 20% in Europe is roughly the makeup of our supply chain.
Right.
Obviously, managing stuff closer to home is easier. So where we can, we'll look to promote the Australian industry and Australian supply chain.
I've got a question here from one of our viewers. It looks like a very technical question to me, but I'll throw it to you anyway, Todd. Are you developing an engine for the RQ-21A Blackjack?
Yes. So in short, the second engine that we announced was into production will fit that vehicle.
And does that open up? That opens up more revenue streams. Is that for Boeing? What's the story
that engine that engine is already in production.
Jason, what do you think? What do you think we need to be doing to encourage manufacturing in this country? I guess as I say, people come to you with all sorts of weird and wonderful pitches for capital raising. I guess. What do you think it is that needs to be done to help make manufacturing more successful?
I guess I'll second Todd's point about competitive advantage. There's like Australia's high labour costs make it difficult to manufacture here. However, if you're in a space where you can firstly get support from the government if you need, as well as be the best at what you do, then it's all irrelevant, the labour costs, because you can charge a premium and you can really succeed in Australia manufacturing. And I guess defence is one of those sectors where you can there is a finite amount of groups that have contracts with, say, the US government, the US defence, which can get you that premium, and that because they spend the most.
It's interesting. I mean, we talk about competitive advantage. I guess I go back to earlier. I was saying that, McDonald's is competitive because they make, it's reliable. It's like a production machine. You know exactly what you're getting. It's at a certain price point. Probably we don't want our manufacturing sector to be the McDonald's of the world, because we don't necessarily have that low cost base. And I guess what you've both said is it's at the premium end, at the value add. So with that in mind, and I'll throw back to you, Todd. I mean, are there obstacles the government needs to remove? Is it a matter of removing obstacles? Is it a matter of introducing certain incentives? Is it something to do with the supply chain?
Yeah, so first of all, you're right. We're an advanced manufacturer, so we need a high skill set. So we work with the universities, across Australia, looking for the very best sort of engineering talent. We also work where possible through TAFE colleges for various technicians for build rooms, etc. So we're happy to promote that. I said before that we work with our supply chain to look at developing the supply chain that will go and support our business as it grows. What can the government does? Well, we were thrilled to have Linda Reynolds, so Senator Reynolds, through the facility some weeks ago on the back of the announcement of the 2020 Defence Paper. And through Senator Reynolds, we're happy to be afforded some of the connections through either the Australian government or other networks that will help us develop the supply chains we need, and will help us with various connections at an international level to promote our product.
When you say develop the supply chains, what does that mean where the rubber hits the road?
So supply chain, so a particular supplier for us will need to start at a particular volume when we're a certain size, but as we grow through and bring more engines onto production, that particular supplier will need to be able to supply a higher volume. So we'll look to help or develop that supplier achieve that. In addition to that, obviously the supplier is providing us with some generally advanced manufacturing component. So we'll need to ensure that when we receive that, we get a high yield product, so it doesn't affect our production. So we will also help in areas we can on developing that supplier so they can meet the various standards of aerospace manufacture.
Years ago, I know Ireland. My wife is Irish, and I know that in Ireland, they did invest very heavily in education, particularly in the tech sector. And you had Apple and all these companies relocating to Ireland in 1990 because in the 90s, I should say, because they had built that capability. I mean, are we investing enough in growing engineers in this country?
I couldn't tell you. All I could say is that we are getting some quality candidates from our universities. So we are not finding it difficult to find at that graduate level the candidates we need. Where it becomes a little more difficult and we have to look further abroad is where you're looking at that experienced engineering talent within manufacturing. Yeah? That's where we may have to import talent. But what happens there is we import that talent and then they are used to train up the graduates that we're getting out of the university. So thereby we're hoping to build up some of that talent here in Perth.
And I imagine that the COVID restrictions must be impinging your ability to import talent. Is that impacting?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So impacting things take longer. Yeah. So we have to plan further in advance to make sure that when we need these additional recruits and employees, that we have them in time. So it just means that you're starting to plan, more in advance than what we would have previously.
And Jason, would you add anything there in terms of encouraging manufacturing in Australia?
Yes, the only thing that I can mention was there's a big emphasis on mining and exploration in Australia, especially being WA. However, we actually we're a nation of inventors and innovators. There's a lot of different interesting tech, a lot of interesting ideas that we see that don't always get picked up. And to be able to diversify away from digging stuff out of the ground is only going to be beneficial for Australia. But there's also a need for more funding in terms of private investment into the space, and not to be so focused on the mining space.
I mean, you're the guy that raises capital. How do you coach someone to stick their hard-earned into a manufacturing venture?
One of the things that Malcolm Turnbull did was introduce the early stage innovation company tax ruling ESIC, which was quite interesting and a bit of a leap at the time. The fact that the early tech plays can get a tax break where investors get, I'm not a tax accountant, but my understanding is that you get a tax credit as well as no capital gains tax to encourage more investment into tech space is definitely a right step in the right way.
And do you find, I mean, to capital raise, it is, I guess, in some ways, I mean, is manufacturing seen as more speculative than mining, perhaps?
Look, it's got two ways to look at it. You can either have two guys in a ute with a metal detector and a shovel. I reckon there's a prospect over there, or you can invest in something that is that could change the world. Innovative, and something like, I guess, Wi-Fi came from Australia. That is who would have thought, when everyone thinks that we just dig stuff out of the ground.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the Orbital, the wonderful things that Orbital are doing, same. You know, I think it's a hidden gem, really, in many respects. I said before that, you know, the Prime Minister launched the Defence Strategic Update 2020, and he had concerns that our region was becoming, and I'm reading here, more dangerous and more disorderly. I mean, what sort of opportunities do you think this is creating for Australian manufacturing, Todd?
Well, we had that paper released. We had, I think it was, as I was saying before, 270 billion to be spent in defence. They allocated $2 billion for unmanned systems. We've had Senator Reynolds through the facility. We're encouraged with Australia's commitment to the defence spending, and in particular carving out within that package spending on research and development and actual sort of enhanced equipment in the unmanned system space. So we will support and look to participate as much as we can in that program.
And Jason, is defence something that crosses your radar much?
It's something that we need to see more of. We don't see enough of it. Unfortunately, in WA, there's only a handful.
I guess, you know, if the Prime Minister was watching this and we're trying to restore, you know, manufacturing, what message would you have for the Prime Minister? I'll start with you, Jason.
The last Prime Minister did a good job of putting some initiatives in place for tech businesses to get off the ground. Let's do more.
Todd?
As I said before, we need a cohesive strategy, competitive advantage and/or strategically important, and great job on the initiatives around defence, and that we'll do what we can to support.
And when you say cohesive, what are the bits that need to glue together?
So let's pick what we believe we are good at competitive advantage. Let's pick what we think we need for strategically important. Let's clearly articulate and communicate that, and let's stay for the course. Yeah.
So do you think then that, like, in the Hawke Keating era, you know, we had the button car plan, for example. I mean, I think that do we need that sort of coordination? Are you saying?
Well, I don't want to comment on the button car plan.
No. Yeah.
I can comment on the direction of the defence initiatives, and I think they're sound. And we look forward, as I said before, to supporting them where we can. Yeah.
Okay. All right, gents. Well, we are out of time, so it's been a real privilege to have you both on. Thank you very much for sharing your time and for sharing your insights. Thank you very much to everybody who's watching us either live, or if you're catching up with us later, or listening to us on your drive home. We look forward to speaking with all of you again, and thank you once again. Cheers.
Thank you, Nick.